Alongside Soapstar, Mecha Steel Rondo and Cosmo Dreamer, Graze Counter GM is the latest in a recent slew of modern indie releases on Switch that, in my opinion, deserve to be considered as being right up there among the very best shmups on the system. All of those games play and feel differently with their own little wrinkles, and Graze Counter is no exception with, as the name has probably already told you, its most central hook being a graze mechanic that's at least an equal to those in Cyvaria Delta and Danmaku Unlimited 3 as one of the most satisfying around. Now, some sort of grazing mechanic can be found in a lot of shmups, but all too often it can feel like something that's been tacked on as an afterthought to spice things up when the main game isn't doing enough on its own. In Graze Counter, that is not the case at all. The whole game is built around the grazing, and for me, that is almost always when this sort of mechanic works best. At its core, the grazing and its attendant systems are really quite simple. You graze to build up a gauge, and when that gauge is full, you can unleash a counter shot that manifests itself as a powerful white laser beam that cancels any enemy bullets it touches and renders your ship invincible for its duration. There are almost always plenty of bullets on screen and the gauge fills pretty quickly, so you can use this counter frequently. And if you want to get anywhere, you absolutely should use it frequently, because not only does it have its own offensive and defensive purpose, but using it to cancel bullets fills a secondary gauge which allows you to enter break mode. Break mode is both super powerful in terms of its power as a shot and as the primary method to ramp up your score. Moreover, entering break mode immediately cancels any bullets on screen at that moment, although you are not invulnerable to any fired after that, so you'll need to rely on your dodging skills to keep you safe. Fortunately, however, you can still graze while in break mode, meaning if you do end up in trouble, you can always cancel out the mode by activating your counter shot. When you first start playing, you will no doubt approach things mostly like a normal shmup, treating counters and breaks as bonus systems to be used as and when you most need them, or for score play. But the key, both to doing well in the game and, in my opinion, having the most fun, is to fully embrace these mechanics and look to exploit them as much as possible. When facing one of the game's frequent overlapping patterns of interlocking streams of bullets, instead of hugging the bottom of the screen and hoping to squeak your way to safety, it's often far better to dive right into the centre of the maelstrom where you can fill your counter gauge in seconds and then unleash the counter shot to farm the densest patterns for your break gauge, then graze while breaking to have your counter ready for when the break ends, and so on ad infinitum. This ebb and flow of charging and countering and breaking make Graze Counter GM play in a very unique way, and combined with its mostly fast-paced stages, upbeat music and varied level design, it makes for an experience that is exhilarating, addictive, intoxicating, and all those other words you most want a good shmup to be. And those are just the core systems. There are other mechanics in operation like a shield system, or rotating bonus items that offer a secret bonus if you can sit in their centre for a couple of seconds, and the title of the game itself actually refers to a literal graze counter, displayed in the upper right of the screen, with this increasing as you graze bullets, and dropping if you go long enough without doing so. Of course, this helps massively with score, and while scoring high is naturally an end in and of itself, Graze Counter is unusually generous with its extends, and if you're properly taking advantage of the scoring systems, you can easily end up with a dozen plus lives by the end of a run. In the standard mode, by the way, a run is 5 stages, but stages 2 and 4 offer A or B routes, making for 7 full stages on offer, and all of these can be strung together as one in the game's all-stage mode, a really nice addition, and the clearing of which can arguably consider the central challenge of the game, especially because on standard difficulty the main game is quite easy. There's a lot more to proceedings than just playing and beating the main stages, however. A lot more. For starters, there is a cool little mission mode section where you have to complete 30 mini-missions, with most of these only taking somewhere in the region of 30 seconds, and tasking you with getting X amount of points or surviving for a certain amount of time without firing. These start off rather gently, maybe even too gently, but pick up in difficulty a little before offering a couple of genuinely challenging situations right at the end. There's also an extra hard bonus stage, a boss rush mode, and a practice mode with level select. Further to all these, there's even a separate little mini-game within the game called Laser Maiden 2 that unlocks after simply playing and beating the main game a certain number of times, and it's pretty fun for a throwaway bonus game. And on top of all of this, which, let's be honest, is already a very significant amount of content, there are achievements to aim for and character profiles for all the various pilots, all of which reveal little snippets of the game's background and plot, with these being worth reading as they're mostly quite short and snappy and frequently introduce a little dash of humour. And on the topic of the pilots, my god, there are a lot of them. 16 in total, and it really is worth going to the effort of unlocking them all, because the way some of them play massively mixes up the way the game operates. I didn't cover this part when talking about the game's mechanics, because there is just so much going on here, but starting each run actually involves making a host of choices, and trying out everything on offer provides a potentially huge amount of playtime. First up, you have to choose standard or unlimited mode, with unlimited mode being more difficult and introducing suicide bullets into the mix. This is different to the difficulty select, which offers 4 levels of difficulty, with there being big variations between them. Standard, as mentioned, is pretty easy, and many people will find themselves once seeing it on their first go. However, fewer people will do the same beyond that, and I found the difficulties to be well judged to offer something for everyone. There's also an option to play in pacifist mode, something that removes your main shot and only allows you to attack by grazing and then utilising your counters. Something I initially tried just to get the achievement, but actually found surprisingly fun. Of course, you will also have to choose your character from, as mentioned, a roster of up to 16 individuals. Shots do vary with wider or narrower spreads, etc., but the main difference is in the skill card each pilot brings to the table. The first 4 ships offer you a standard choice of 1 from the same 3 little boosts, with the remaining 12 ships only having 1 skill card each, but all of these serve up highly unique variations, such as a proximity shot, a wavering laser that cancels bullets as your break shot, or switching the way break and counter meters charge, a small change on paper but something that massively alters the way you approach the game in practice, as well as many, many more. It all adds up to a pretty ridiculous amount of content, and because the game is so fun, it can be hard to stop yourself having one more go each time you unlock a new pilot or mode. The only thing I'd have liked to have seen here would have been some sort of notification of what you have unlocked, as with many of these unlockables being in different parts of the menu, if you don't know you've unlocked something, it may be some time before you realise something new is available, by which point you won't know what you did to unlock it. In general though, the menus and options are very well done, although there is a strange thing where pressing back always takes you all the way back to the start menu instead of back one step in the selection process. A very minor gripe though. In terms of presentation, I have to say I think this is first rate in every aspect that really counts. Things can get very chaotic and there can be a lot going on with all the counters and gauges, but the game manages this chaos perfectly and uses both visual and audio clues to allow you to track your status while still keeping your eyes on the action which always prioritizes the right things, so when you die you only ever have yourself to blame. The mech designs are all excellent with a kind of old school anime vibe to them despite the pixel graphics, and the pilots add a bit of charm and humour to proceedings. There are a couple of cool little set pieces in the final stage, and in general the stages are distinct from each other, although the backgrounds can stray into overly simple territory at times. The music is great and very catchy, and as mentioned there's some smart use of audio cues to let you know what is going on, and although the grazing sound is not exactly the most pleasant, for the most part the game is easy on both the eye and ear. So super fun mechanics, loads of content, attractive presentation, and a sprinkling of charm and humour to proceedings that give the game a bit of character. There's really nothing much negative to say here. It would be nice to have online leaderboards, and there is currently an issue with the local leaderboards that I believe is in the process of being patched, but basically what we have on our hands here is an absolutely top quality original shmup, and one I am delighted to see has turned out every bit as well as I'd hoped. It's not even that expensive, and I would heartily recommend Graze Counter GM to pretty much everyone, and I'm happy to give it a 9 out of 10. It always delights me when we see new indie shmups turning out this well, and I hope a lot of people will support studios like Bikkuri Software so that hopefully it makes it worth their while to stick around and keep delivering awesome new releases just like this one. And by the way, there is a demo of the game available on the eShop, so if my pretty unequivocal praise hasn't been enough to convince you, you can go check out a couple of stages yourself and make your own mind up. However you play it though, do let us know your thoughts below, and thanks as ever for watching. See you next time. Cheers.